You have to do sound claps.
Yeah, for the synchronicity, will be needed to make little stop every 12 minutes and a little clap like this.
Okay, you're in charge of claps.
Okay, we are.
We on?
We are. We're on. Okay. Thanks a lot for coming, everyone. I'm sorry we're not speaking in Spanish. Buenos días. But everybody speaks English, right? More or less. Good. This is we're launching. This is like a pilot of an idea. We have to do a series of podcasts.
I was trying to tell you to stop twiddling glasses.
Okay. And yeah, we're going to do 12. So this is a little rehearsal. Or
What do you mean? I thought it was the first one.
the first one. This is the first one, right? Okay. Right. So the first question is easy question. How are we going to save the world?
I think actually getting actively involved in our political system and reforming it. We've been rotted by comfort by 60 years of peace. The democracy is under attack, and our vote is our most powerful tool to change the world. If you consider that most politicians are vested interest group, just in politics to get re-elected, you've got to hit them where it hurts. And the thing that they're most terrified is of not getting elected because they lose all their money, all their power. And so we need to be on it. I was talking to Barry Byrne, who's a local activist in Solia, and he set up a site which shows foreigners how they can actually register to vote before if they've lived here for over 3 years, they've got residency, they can actually vote in local elections. And I think this is super important, not just local, but national, getting everybody out to vote. Because the only money that government spends is our money, and we should be writing the agenda rather than waiting for political parties to deliver us the agenda. We need to claw back our democratic system, which loads of people from Pierre Lamy onwards have said it's not fit for purpose, and make it fit for purpose. We need to devolve to proportionate representation and then participatory democracy, where we vote issue by issue on things that are coming up, whether it's education, healthcare, military spending, infrastructure spending, renewable energy. We should be forcing the agenda because it's our money, it's our future, and it's gone desperately wrong, and it's our fault. We're being rotted by comfort for too long, and it's use it or lose it. You can see what's happening all over the world, in America, in Europe, the rise of the extreme right. Unless we look after ourselves, unless we get it on now, we're really fucked. Is that an answer?
Yeah, that's a good answer.
Thank you.
I think the reason I'm doing this is because I think we're at a kind of crisis point at the moment. And I think after decades of neoliberalism, well, but for me, I don't see that there's anyone to vote for at the moment.
Well, I think the thing is that I was talking to Barry, and he said, well, we've got a couple of weeks to wait till the parties come out with their policies. And I thought, actually, fuck no. We should be writing to them now saying, I want this, that. Unless you represent my views, I'm going to be voting for somebody else who does. And get onto them now before they come out with it. Jump the gun. You know, they're waiting for them to come out with la-di-da, we're going to do this, and you know, it's all lies because they don't once they get elected. I think that we need to get off our asses now and contact them and encourage our friends to do the same. I did a little film for Samsung Global Goals UNDP, which I'll show you a boy to death with a bit later, but it's about telling kids how they can use the power of their vote before they've even got it. How they may not be voting at this election, but they can contact their elected representatives because they'll be voting at the next one and saying, you know, this is the world we want. And hopefully getting it to the kids to shame up their parents to get involved, because recently there was an election in the UK which the left just won. I mean, how there wasn't a landslide to the left with this catastrophic government there is in the UK, but it was 23% turnout. That's pathetic. You know, we want 50%, we want 75%. I mean, the good news is that the latest elections in America, there was a really big turnout amongst women and young people. And that's where I think the balance of power lies.
Well, I voted once in my life when I was 17.
You're crap.
And actually I voted twice. I voted here in Mallorca, which I think is important now.
As a British national?
I think
Or
it's
as a local resident?
just, I was living in a small village and it was like...
So you voted in local elections?
Yeah.
Well, I think they're super important here because the local ayuntamiento is like a fiefdom. It's almost like medieval in its power. And if we can actually contribute, you know, in our local communities, it's very much act local, think global, because if you've got all the ayuntamientos who are left wing, like the one in Bea, they're doing amazing things. So it's like the one in Soria, it's very right wing, and all they're doing is doing stuff where they're getting huge subsidies from God knows what, and they're not doing enough for kids, young people, old people, all the rest of it, education, disaster. So, you know, if we could get all the councils to go left, it would be a huge, or at least if we could contribute to that, that the right was going to have to listen to the left more. You know, I think that we've got a moral obligation to do it, because millions of people died in 2 world wars, and are dying ongoing. Civil wars, you look at Iran, you know, these people are fighting for the right to self-determine, to determine their own destinies. We owe it to the people that are fighting now, and we owe it for all of our ancestors who died in wars to vote and stop being so appallingly complacent. The world isn't going to get right if we don't fix it.
Well, I actually think the world is going to save it. The world doesn't need to be saved, because the world was here before we got here, and it's going to be here after we go. I think we have to try and save each other, help each other, look after each other, and not presume that we're saving the world, because...
Well, there's a mistranslation in Genesis, apparently. Genesis 13, when man is given dominion, the word dominion, over the beasts of the field and the fish of the sea and the birds of the air. I actually checked it with a friend who's a classical scholar. I said, I've been reading all these books on the environment, and all these writers are coming up and saying it went wrong when this word dominion was given as the role of man. And he checked it right the way back, and he said, you're right. It should read partnership, guardianship, control, responsibility for. We should be looking after everything. Each other, yes, but everything. I mean, if we don't, I mean, how many species are we losing a minute? You know, we should be looking after. It's just, you know, heartbreaking.
It's true.
And if we got our asses together, I mean, I think the internet, if you consider a beehive as a product of nature, the internet is a product of nature because it's made by animals, you know, human beings. And so therefore it's a product of nature. We should be jumping into that and using it to turn ourselves into a unified force for the good. And I think it's possible. I think it's our only hope. I mean, our hope is that people care, and younger generations are increasingly concerned, increasingly informed, certainly more informed than my generation. When we were little, we just wanted to be rich and famous and didn't realise that we were wrecking the planet in the process. But young people now care, and they know a lot more. And we can do it. But we need to, we've got no time, we've run out of time, we need to move really fast.
Okay, I agree with that. And sorry, I'm a bit of an amateur here, so I'm just going to go to question 2. Is that okay?
Sorry?
I've got question 2 here. I was just, I know, I'd like to talk a bit more personal stuff and have it more informal.
Sure, go for it.
Because the politics stuff, I don't know. Anyway, this is question number 2. I've written a bunch of questions here. The second one is, have you ever rebelled against someone else's expectations of your life and become something more unexpected?
I don't know. I mean, my parents told me when I was 13 and I wanted to be, they said, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to be an archaeologist. They said, you can't do that because you need a private income. And so you've got to earn your own living. And so I guess that's what I did. I kind of picked fashion slightly out of a hat.
Right.
I thought I checked who the most overpaid people on the face of this earth and these fashion designers. So I thought, yes, I'm there. I think I was lucky with my family. We just knew. I just said I wanted to be happy. Or else in those days being happy was earning tons and tons of money, having a ridiculously undemanding job. And so I kind of headed for it. But yeah, no, sorry.
And what creative achievements are you most proud of?
I did the Choose Love t-shirt, which I think was the best thing I ever did. And I gave it to, they were called Help Refugees at the time. It's this wonderful small organisation that's set up to help refugees. And it's a kind of note to self, because, you know, I kind of see it everywhere, okay, because I'm looking for it. But, you know, it's about the position you have to take if you're going to do anything. So finally at 75, I've realised, you know, you have to approach everything with love. Everything that you do, whether it's your job or family dramas, if you approach them with love, you'll do the right thing, and it's about the only attitude that you can have for getting it right, I think. And so that is my favourite.
Yeah, love is the answer
It
to
is.
all the questions.
Okay, so should we go to the next one?
Okay, if there was an event in your life which really shaped you, made you the person that you are today, what, can you think of one?
Well, yeah, my father was in the Air Force, and he started off as a pilot, and then he became an officer, and sort of shot through the ranks, and ended up as a defence attaché, so in charge of British, representing the British military, but also the British arms industry. So sort of I've got a, you know, you could say that as a slightly murky past. But he was a prisoner of war with the Japanese. He lost two brothers in the war, both in the Air Force. And he believed in king and country, and he believed in sort of this hegemony that we were, you know, Britain was good, you know, that old view, and committed his life to his job. And he was involved in the TSR2 scandal, which was an incredible, you need a clap. Loud.
No.
Like that.
1 moment.